Hey there, I'm Trent, and this is my fourth episode of Did I Enjoy? This time I've deviated, playing highly reviewed games in my library, to try a game with mixed reviews. I haven't looked up any of the review comments specifically at this point in time, but I will afterwards, so all the commentary will be my own unspoiled view, and we'll see if we have the same problems that others did at the end. I'm streaming all the games I play on my Twitch channel, which I will put a link for in the description. Give me a follow if you'd like to see my live impressions. Also, make sure to subscribe and put a like and comment on this video if you enjoy, because if you're anything like me, then you love watching people give takes on your favorite games. Dead Rising 4 is, as its name suggests, the fourth game in the Dead Rising series. You play as journalist Frank West, who has been fighting zombie hordes in the previous games, all in the name of getting the scoop. Dead Rising 4 is available on its own at full price for $30 or £20, but also comes in the Dead Rising 4 Frank's Big Package, haha, with all the DLC for around $50 or £35. It's worth noting, at the time I wrote this script, the game was on sale for 75 to 80% off, so expect to see this game with deep discounts in the future as well. The game was released on the 14th of March 2017 and currently has a paltry 58% positive rating, with over 3,200 reviews on Steam. I had no problems with the graphics in Dead Rising 4. It's basically a AAA title, and while the visuals certainly aren't breathtaking, they were more than adequate to serve the game well, with no glaring issues noticed by myself. Given that this is the first game I've played in my YouTube series with a heavier graphics load, I'll go into the details of the experience and setup. I ran the game on my GTX 1080 graphics card, playing at 1920 by 1080 resolution, while streaming using the NVIDIA NVENC encoder. Every time I checked, I was at or around 90 to 110 frames per second, with whatever default graphics settings the game loaded up. Normally, I would like to be above 144 FPS to get the most out of my monitor, but this was fine as I was more concerned with staying over 60 FPS for the sake of the stream and the subsequent video. I didn't notice any auto graphics setup like some games have on first launch, so I left everything at default settings as set by the devs. This game was designed with controller users in mind as it's multi-platform, but I didn't conform to this as I don't usually play games on the controller unless the game is really suited to it. I do have some complaints about how the game played on keyboard though, but there's guns in this game and that was enough for me to want to use the mouse. I found movement pretty clunky, character turning and dodging was slow and unresponsive a lot of the time, and during the first 30 seconds of the game I had to up the sensitivity significantly due to the unresponsiveness of the camera. I also found that while playing I would often press the dodge button 2 to 3 times and nothing would happen, resulting in me getting bopped by enemy attacks. I'm not sure if this was somehow animation lock during these times, but I don't think I was. I think it was just poor responsiveness. Vehicle driving was actually mostly okay, which was surprising as using WASD to drive is usually not a good time in most games. Another thing was that while I was trying to fight off hordes of zombies, which is supposed to be the main attraction of the game, this was usually pretty awkward and resulted in me taking a lot of damage, making it far more convenient and a lot safer to just run through the zombies that weren't in the way and ignore everything but the most dangerous of enemies. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the supposed zombie killing spree this game is meant to be, along with some of the game's systems. First things first, this game is not serious at heart. If you want more of a serious zombie killing game with crafting and health pickups, I would suggest checking out Dead Island. I've played that game before and it has a much earthier vibe than this game does. From the costume changing to the weapon and vehicle crafting, Dead Rising is not a very heavy game. You have 3 different weapon classes in the game: thrown weapons like grenades and piles of gems, melee weapons like swords and cash registers, projectile weapons like guns, and even household cleaning spray. Melee weapons further get broken down into bladed weapons like swords or machetes, blunt weapons could be something like a chair or a mace, and close quarters weapons like brass knuckles or electrified boxing gloves. Ranged weapons are broken down similarly as well. You have handguns, which include pistols and SMGs, assault weapons like rifles and LMGs. You have a shotgun class as well. All weapons are limited in use in some way, shape, or form. You can hold multiple of each type of weapon, I believe it's 3 of each to start off with, and you can spend skill points at certain levels to increase your carrying capacity of these weapons. Melee weapons have a durability and will break after a certain amount of attacks, Range weapons have ammunition and are discarded after you fire the last shot. Thrown weapons have a certain amount you pick up at a time, like picking up 3 grenades or 1 propane canister. Weapons do not stack in any way. If you were to pick up 3 pistols, each with 10 shots, then that's what you get, 3 pistols with 10 shots. No mixing to get 1 pistol with 30 shots, and picking up 2 lots of frag grenades will result in 2 stacks of 3 rather than 1 stack of 6. You increase the viability of weapons in the skill tree, increasing critical strike chance, critical damage, durability, ammo capacity, and inventory capacity. This allows you to specialize in whatever type of weapon you fancy. Personally, I started off favoring bladed weapons and assault rifles, and once I got a few extra skill points, I threw some into handguns as well. Your skill tree is limited by level as well as prerequisite points, so you won't be able to barrel down one specialization straight away, and you'll find yourself with extra skill points kicking around to increase other things than damage, like survivability or money collection. Speaking of money, it's time for a little rant. You collect a currency in this game called scrap, which you can spend scrap to buy weapons, blueprints, vehicles, food, maps of collectibles, and outfits. I don't actually know if you buy something once, if it's then permanently unlocked and you can just pick it up for free again from a safe house whenever you want. Why don't I know this? Because I, at no point in time, ever felt like it was necessary to spend money at the vendors. Not once. I did have a look at a couple of the vendors to see what was what, but the use of safe houses and vendors in the game was so unnecessary during my playthrough that they might as well have not been there. If you are unable to procure weapons or vehicles with ease in the main game world, then these safe houses would serve as a refueling points for health, ammo, weapons, etc. But you don't even have to go to them other than for story reasons or for completionism. Okay, so I don't have to go to the safe houses or vendors if I don't want to. Big deal, right? Well, why are they in the game then? I played on hard difficulty and never had any issues ever that resulted in me needing to visit one. Maybe 1 or 2 times I was like, I wish I had some more ammo right now because I don't want to use melee weapons too often because melee combat kinda sucks. But it never enticed me enough to go to the safe house and execute this wish because it didn't feel necessary. Someone worked hard to design and code this safe house system and I mostly completely ignored it. At least if it's not necessary to go there, which is fine, player choice and all that, then make the safe houses OP like crazy and teach players that they want to go to the safe houses in between missions. Between the aggressive survivors who carry weapons and stuff just lying around, I never ran out of ammo or weapons in a serious way, and if I was running low, I could just run off the main street into a building or shop, and there was probably about 9 weapons and 6 health pickups right next to each other. In order to visit a safe house, you need to go to a specific location through 2 sets of doors and potentially down or up some stairs, and then talk to a vendor, and then go through a menu. It's insanely inconvenient for a game that's main attraction is to massacre zombies in a not-so-serious atmosphere. If I want to go to the safe house and pick up a zombie bazooka, which can only be acquired there, which I can only carry 1 or 2 shots of, and then I get to blow a whole crowd of zombies to bits, then, that's what's going to make me want to go there. Give me something cool for the effort, because there's nothing. Now, moaning about a 5-year-old game is not going to get me anywhere, but the more I think about it, the more it annoys me, so I'm going to move on to the next bit. There are encounters in the main world, I'm not sure how random they are, which are like mini side missions which involve destroying some equipment, rescuing a friendly survivor who will go back to one of your safe houses if you save enough of them, and they will upgrade it, very useful, and looting containers. There are also some rumor missions where you end up fighting some minions and then a mini-boss. I believe all of the encounters award some amount of prestige points and some money. These can usually have blueprints lying around in them for weapon crafting, but it's not all the time. Now, prestige points function as experience in the game, and obviously the more you collect, the more levels you'll gain. Prestige is acquired by taking pictures with the camera, you are journalists after all, completing side missions, story missions, challenges, and of course killing zombies and building hit streaks. Levels result in scrap and skill points which can be either spent at vendors or in the skill tree respectively. Higher levels allow you to unlock higher level skills, which are more beneficial, but the enemies in the game don't seem to have levels themselves, so the level system doesn't really function as progression in that sense, more just a skill point generator. You're not going to find a level 50 enemy when you're level 20 and be unable to kill them because of this. I finished the game at around level 55, and according to the game, 60% completion rate. The final skills are locked until level 80. Some of the skills are also acquirable by training manuals. If I had to guess, these are either purchased or rewarded for completing challenges or acquiring collectibles, but I never came across even one in my playthrough. I did find some collectibles around the world, but I never went to collect everything because I didn't feel encouraged to. We need less mindless collectible farming and more reasons to find the collectibles in the first place in our playthroughs. For example, get the player to complete a collectible set as part of the main storyline. Then, as a reward, give them a weapon, or a sick outfit, or a vehicle, or something, and then point to all the other collectibles in the game and say, hey, look at those. This would have got me looking for stuff. As a comparison, I remember vaguely playing Far Cry 3 when it came out. I remember hunting animals in the game worlds for their pelts, and the reward was more inventory space or more health or something similar. The game then gave you a list of all the animals that you could hunt, and you would want to go do it because there's a reward, and not just a counter at the end saying you have collected X out of 5. I think this is a good way to make people want to get collectibles rather than just adding them to your game, because there should be collectibles in the game according to old video game law that says video games have collectibles. Back to a bit about the combat. There are these things in the game called exosuits as well. These are powered armor which you can equip, and they allow you to use heavy weapons like huge axes, miniguns, Slurpee machines, and a few other weapons, some being silly and some more traditional. These suits have a power limit, meaning you don't get to live in them forever, and you'll still take damage while wearing one, so you need to play somewhat carefully as you're not invincible. I didn't mind the exosuits, but other than when I was forced to use them, I would normally just not pick it up and carry on running through the zombies to the next mission objective because it seemed like a better play. Bosses in the game are pretty simple. Run away, shoot, ideally don't get hit. There aren't really any real mechanics. While some of the bosses have unique abilities and occasionally you get to fight bosses in an unlimited power exosuit, it was basically all brute force for me and not super interesting. I covered the progression a little bit already in the last section. You gain levels and skill points and get to customize your progression that way, and for the most part, that's it. You do get the option to pick what outfits you want your character to wear, but they're all visual only as far as I can tell, and you don't get any buffs or boosts from them. Not a problem. Sometimes fashion for itself is fine and not everything needs to affect gameplay, I suppose, but it would have been cool to see like an army outfit increasing your ammo capacity, or a chef outfit increasing your damage with bladed weapons. The skill tree has 4 sections to work through: brawling, survival, fortitude, and shooting. You aren't locked into any of the skill trees at any one point, and you can put your points wherever you please so long as you're the correct level and you've unlocked the correct skills beforehand. Brawling is your melee tree, allowing you to select skills and focus on improving how much benefit you get out of melee weapons. Shooting is the same, but for ranged weapons. Survival is about convenience and reward, things like more inventory space and finding more scrap, while fortitude is primarily about increasing Frank's health, stamina, and damage resistance, allowing you to survive more hits and run for longer. There is another game mode called Capcom Heroes or something like that, where you collect stars during your playthrough and you get to temporarily morph Frank into one of Capcom's heroes from their other games. I played the first level of this mode after beating the campaign, but it kinda just seemed like it might be the same game with a gimmick, which would be enjoyable if you're a fan of the other Capcom games with the heroes and players that you can get from there, but it wasn't for me. There's also a multiplayer mode, but the game's 5 years old with mixed reviews, so I didn't even bother trying to queue up. As for the story, in Dead Rising 4 you play Frank West, journalist and zombie killer extraordinaire. Frank has killed so many zombies by now that at no point in the story or in the cutscenes is there a drop of fear in the guy related to anything. New zombie virus? Oh, okay, that sucks, better sort it. Someone backstabbing you and putting your life in danger? No problem, I'll deal with it. Zombie lord in an exosuit? Well, I guess it's just another day. Without spoiling too much, you start the game off under the pretense of going out to play mini-golf with one of your university students, Vic Chu. Turns out, there is no mini-golf, and it was all a facade to get Frank to go back to the town the first Dead Rising was based in, Willamette, where there has been rumors of goings-on which might be worthy of a news story. You break into a military-esque facility where some zombies are being held captive and experimented on, and then things escalate from there. Now, I like little bit of realism in the stories. Like, just a little bit to make the game a tiny bit believable. But every single time something happens in this game, Frank just cracks a joke and runs headfirst into the fire. Not to mention, there were multiple times in the story that I was just thinking, if you had killed this person, then this wouldn't be an issue right now, especially since X or Y has happened, and that means they've deserved it. This is not an accidentally created problem, I don't think. The devs weren't trying to make a serious game, but in order for me to personally enjoy something, I want to get into the story just a smidge. And when I feel like someone is alive for the sake of plot or some other unjustifiable reasons, and that person is still causing issues, why wouldn't the main character just take care of them? It bothers me that there's an unsolved problem which would have been solved by one of the game's many crafted weapons, and things are worse because of it. The progression in the story itself isn't that awful, I don't think. You play through 6 chapters or so, finding out why and where these new zombies came to be, as everyone is supposed to be vaccinated. You encounter a couple of different interest groups in the game, but you don't have any input to the story as far as I can tell. It's all on rails. You're just killing target A and running to target B to watch cutscenes C and then rinse and repeat. No dialogue choices or decisions to be made whether someone important lives or dies. It's the same result every time. Okay, now for my overall impressions of the game, let's see what I can think of. I haven't covered every single thing in the game, gotta leave some mystery just in case someone else sees this review and decides they want to play the game. Firstly, the game is not terrible. I played it on hard difficulty and finished the main story in and around 8 hours, which means it's easily finishable in one day if you decide to have a long gaming session. I'm not sure if it's worth noting that Steam achievements say only 3.6% of people finished the game on this hard difficulty. There's another difficulty which is called Blackest Friday. I'm guessing this is meant to be very hard, and that's probably even lower. There are actually over 90 achievements in this game as well, so if you're some kind of achievement hunter, it might not be a bad pickup for you if it was on sale. I could see you getting over 30 hours out of the game if you decided to go down that path. As for the low percent of completion on the hard difficulty, I'm going to guess that people just didn't finish the game. It's not that hard. I'm guessing just people they played it and just didn't finish it. As for the game itself, it functions, and I can only remember coming across a couple of bugs that were related to vehicles crashing into things, so at least that's a bonus. You do get to massacre zombies with weapons and explosives and vehicles, which is usually a pretty good time in any game, regardless of other issues. The story for me was meh. At this point, if you're in a 4th game in a series, the plot should feel somewhat relevant other than progressing the game along. I didn't find it very interesting. Small spoiler here, but bad people do bad things to try and make money, and then things go wrong. Cue zombie invasion, and then having to try and sort it out. Not particularly deep, interesting, or original. Definitely meh in my eyes. Despite the control issues I had, the game is playable, so it's not like you're going to get to a point where it's just so bad that you decide to put the controller down and call it a day. Dodging and moving through zombies was mostly the worst part, but thankfully you can just run through everything and it's happy days. I thought the best part was probably the skill tree. I do wish the tree had less restrictions though. The leveling system, stopped me from getting to the end of the tree and unlocking the final perks before beating the game. I would have only been able to accomplish this by intentionally going out and hunting zombies and collectibles in order to farm prestige points. I suppose this is mostly my fault I didn't get to level 80 after all, but seeing as there was no need to go that deep, the game wasn't very challenging, it wasn't a big deal. Having played this game to the end, I think I can understand why there are mixed reviews. At this point in the script, I've written over 3,000 of my own words about the game, so it's time for me to check out the Steam reviews and see what others have to say. A lot of the people who are fans of the Dead Rising series are not into this game, with many of the reviews coming up with the same opinions that I came up with on my own. Story is boring, uninteresting, and not really relevant to the series. Frank spends more time making jokes than being a reporter. Gameplay is sluggish, repetitive, easy, and not that fun. There's not much uniqueness or variety in the game other than the weapon crafting. And worst of all, the cardinal sin, the true ending of the game is locked behind paid DLC. Which means I don't even know what the true ending is, as I don't own any of the DLC, and even if it's on sale right now, I'm not going to pay for it. So where does that leave us with this mixed review game? Well, if you're a fan of Dead Rising 1 to 3, then avoid this game like a plague, as fans of the series look supremely let down. If you've never played a Dead Rising game before, but wouldn't mind a silly zombie killing game, then yeah, you can wait till this game is heavily discounted and have a bit of fun. You probably won't even know why the other people were complaining. As for me, someone who isn't a fan of the Dead Rising series, not because I think the games are bad or because I intentionally avoided them, I just never played them, I lean towards the second camp a little bit more. This is not an awful game in and of itself, it's just a bad Dead Rising game. That's all I have for this review. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you liked the video, as it helps me out and keeps me going. Peace out.